knowledge of the rishis, power of the mantra. It is not just simply a religious belief, not at all. It is an encompassing way of spiritual knowledge. We say Vedic knowledge systems, and it is something that embraces the entire universe, not just simply the earth, not just simply the whole of life. Foundation of Vedic knowledge is concept of Paramatma, Purusha, that there is one self in all beings, that there is one consciousness pervading the entire universe, and that there is one self in all beings. This is an insight that is really not found to any articulated extent elsewhere, and is the basis of all the Vedic knowledge systems and the Vedic spirituality, which we also combine or express through yoga and the Vedanta. It is a heritage for all humanity, and it is a heritage that teaches us to understand and honor all creatures, all life, whole of existence as sacred. It is not a tradition that is limited to politics, to economics. Namaste, Shri Guru Pyo Namaha. It is my great honor to be before this venerable audience, this intellectual forum of the Northeast, which is the need of the times, Vivekananda Kendra, and our Honorable Minister, Himanta Biswa Sharma. So, I have come here after 15 years. I really should be here more often. It's an area that I always felt very connected to. And as I've also said, as the Ishana, or Northeastern ruling direction, it is crucial for not only for the national security of India, but also for its culture, its spirituality, and the movement of the divine grace, the great power of yogis and rishis into this region. And I'm happy to say that I have been doing these type of programs for, I would say, more than 30 years, but that India is rising, India is waking up, India is reclaiming its destiny, its heritage, and India, Bharat, is not just simply a nation in the modern sense of the term. It is also a great culture, the greatest culture in the world, and a great civilization, a civilization going back more than 5,000 years, and a civilization that has impacted the entire Asian region and also the entire world. And the foundation of this culture tradition is the Hindu, the Sanatana Dharma, the Vedic teachings overall. And it is a living tradition based upon the parampara, which is not just simply maintaining a uniform belief system over time, but constantly in every generation renewing and transforming that. And as a different civilization, India, Bharat, has its own terminology, its own traditions, and has been highly misunderstood because it has been interpreted in terms of Western theology, Western politics, and other views, or from the Islamic world, Chinese world, wherever, that are not appropriate to this dharmic tradition. So it's necessary to reclaim the intellectual presentation and to reclaim the terminology. Veda, basis of this tradition, means wisdom, cognitive knowledge of the rishis, power of the mantra. It is not just simply a religious belief, not at all. It is an encompassing way of spiritual knowledge. We say Vedic knowledge systems, and it is something that embraces the entire universe, not just simply the earth, not just simply the whole of life. Foundation of Vedic knowledge is concept of Paramatma, Purusha, that there is one self in all beings, that there is one consciousness pervading the entire universe, and that there is one self in all beings. This is an insight that is really not found to any articulated extent elsewhere, and is the basis of all the Vedic knowledge systems and the Vedic spirituality, which we also combine or express through yoga and the Vedanta. It is a heritage for all humanity, and it is a heritage that teaches us to understand and honor all creatures, all life, whole of existence as sacred. It is not a tradition that is limited to politics, to economics, or even to theology, but embraces every creature and is aware of the vast extent of the universe itself, and that the universe is a manifestation of consciousness, not just simply a material or even a religious phenomenon. Now today, the world is at a crossroads, and India is also at a crossroads, because it is this deeper yogic Vedic knowledge that we need to unite the planet, to save the ecology, to bring true harmony between all the different communities in the world, and to resolve all these different conflicting ideologies which are based upon placing material interest over deeper spiritual and inner values. Now, in India today, we now have a revival of the culture and the civilization, and greater values for it. But at the same time, there continues to be this assault, these cultural wars, as we say, these efforts to undermine validity of traditional celebrations like Diwali, or control of Hindu temples, or value of the rituals, or even respect for the gurus, respect for the deities, because there is a lack of understanding of the greater tradition and the deeper values involved. And that is why the intellectual forms are so very important, because there needs to be a new rethinking of all these concepts and a presentation of them in a language and understanding that can be made relevant to the world today. Now, we live in this era of information technology, and we live in an era in which we are becoming progressively disconnected from the world of nature and from our own inner being or deeper self. So there needs to be a fundamental reorientation of education. That is why we need yoga in the schools, not just as asana, but also as pranayama, mantra, meditation to calm the mind so that we can use this technology without being overwhelmed by it. We need the Ayurveda, the natural healing, all the herbs involved, the right dietary factors, right living factors based upon understanding of constitution. Because whatever we do with our technology, we are products of the world of nature, and we cannot find happiness or well-being if we've lost our organic connection with the whole of life. And here I see the northeast of India as one of the most powerful, perhaps the most powerful ecosystem in the world, with the rivers, the mountains, the plants, the great Himalayas, all of this, and having a central role in holding that particular energy. Now, we also need, relative to understanding psychology, spirituality, and religion, to be able to look more deeply into ourselves and into the meditative mind through these...
Anything closer?
Oh yes, I can put the mind very close. Thank you. Yep. So we need to take that deeper knowledge into the mind and consciousness. At the deepest level, The Hindu Dharma is a science of consciousness. It is not just simply a set of religious beliefs or outer practices. And by science of consciousness, we mean a science of universal consciousness. Because true consciousness is not simply a matter of a creaturely mind or human mind, and it's certainly not just a matter of technology, computers, social media. Consciousness pervades everything in the universe and all the forces of nature. But to understand that, we must understand the movements of the mind, be able to work with and go beyond the limitations of our human emotions, our human opinions, our mere political or ideological views, and get back to that essential oneness with existence over all. That is the foundation of the Vedic Dharma. Now, the Vedic Dharma presents itself through the language of mantra, starting with these very arcane ancient mantras like Gayatri mantra, Triambaka mantra, all of that. Moving into the deeper teachings of Upanishads, Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, the mantric connection to the whole of existence. Moving into the yoga teachings, understanding the movements of the mind in order to transcend the mind, and moving into this entire Vedantic teaching of oneness. Recently we did a special program on oneness and Advaita Vedanta at the Chinmaya University outside of Kochi. At the same time, we need to develop a deeper discernment or viveka. And this is a very important point, that we need even more discernment or viveka relative to religion and spirituality than relative to the outer things of life. We cannot just simply say all religions are the same, all beliefs are the same, any more than we can say all legal systems are the same or all artworks are the same. There is a need to go to a deeper level of understanding. Now, the Sanatana Dharma, the Hindu Dharma, actually holds a greater variety of teachings spiritually, and even also in terms of art and science, than I would say all the other religions of the world put together. And it is something more than a religion. It is not just simply a way of life. It is a way of self-realization. It is a way of dharma for the unfoldment of all aspects of life. So it's also necessary to maintain the Hindu identity, the Hindu traditions, and the foundation of these traditions is also ritual. And there are some people who don't give importance to ritual, saying the most important thing is thoughts or ideas or the mind. But ritual is right action in harmony with life, with nature, with the seasons, and connecting ourselves to the greater universe. Along with the ritual is the importance of the temple or the mandir as the place where these higher spiritual yogic energies can be brought into the human world. We not only need to raise ourselves individually, we also need to raise our society as a whole with not only greater vibrations of peace, but with a deeper education and a deeper spiritual orientation to the meaning of life as a whole. And with these factors, it is very necessary to preserve the cultural diversity. In fact, I would say there is a greater cultural diversity in India than in any other country of the world, but a diversity that is rooted in a deeper unity and sense of the sacred than a lot of the materialistic, political outer cultures that we have dominating the world today. So these cultures, like the different ecosystems, need to be preserved. And for that, the family has to be maintained, extended family, community, educational patterns, local temple worship, local religious worship, arts and crafts, way of life, because this is the way that we are able to sustain these higher energies in the world. They can be integrated into the forces of information and technology, science, travel, all those things. But we also need to be grounded in the earth, connected to nature, and holding that deeper organic essence. What we see in the world today, we see the organic basis of life declining, breakdown of the family system, loss of identity, loss of the deeper spiritual vision. So that needs to be countered. And the forces that we are seeing coming into India are already operative in the West. We need to find our harmony and well-being within us, not through external stimulation of drugs. Even our technology can stimulate us, inform us in some way, but it cannot bring us true happiness and well-being. That can only come from this deeper inner awareness that must be sustained not simply at an individual level, but also at a community and collective level. We see the influence of India spreading throughout the world. Narendra Modi was just in the United States, and he's now made friends with, I'd say, a greater variety of leaders in the world than any other world leader today. Indian concepts and understandings through yoga, Vedanta, and Ayurveda are spreading at the same time that India remains under siege by foreign ideologies. The biggest problem we have in India is that the intellectual class, particularly in the urban realms like Delhi, were captured or controlled by Marxist, leftist influences, and they still project their influences via the media and via certain academic forms that also need to be challenged. In fact, we've also been involved with this ancient Indian issue, and I was recently meeting with some of the geneticists, like my friend Niraj Rai in Lucknow, and the latest genetic research shows that there is a continuity of the same populations in India going back 5,000 years, and there's no evidence of these people coming in and bringing you your culture and your civilization from the outside. One of the points that I have long argued, you mentioned myth of Aryan invasion. India has the greatest literature in terms of size, depth, and diversity from the ancient world than any other culture, whether it's Egypt or Babylonia or the Greeks or the Romans, which is of course the Vedas. Now we have this continuity of culture, civilization, and populations going back 5,000 years. So these two have to come together. The Vedic heritage is the heritage of ancient India. It is already very diverse in its origin, with dozens of great rishis, Vasishta, Vishwamitra, Agastya, Bharadwaj, so many others. And it also honors the forces of nature, Agni, Soma, Vayu, but not simply as outer factors, but as inner factors of a deeper cosmic being that we are part of, including the basis of the Ayurvedic medicine. We also work with the Agni. We lit the Agni, or the fire, here. Recently we were in Ayodhya for Diwali, and we were part of this lighting of more than 500,000 oil lamps on the Sari River. Some would say, why are you wasting so much oil for such a purpose? Why? Because in honoring the divine forces, the great gurus, the devatas, the avatars. We are creating the foundation to bring that deeper, healing, transformative energy into life. So we are doing a great work and a great service. And that same power of consciousness is like a fire. We call it Chidagni, fire of consciousness. Lalita is said, Chidagni Kunda Sambhuta, born of the altar of the fire of consciousness. And we're very honored to be in Kamakya, and nearby Kamakya, which is the home of Devi Shakti, Kamakshi, the supreme form of the goddess. And I would also like to introduce to you my wife Yogini Shambhavi, because not only does she hold the power of the Shakti sadhana and the Devi, even though she came from what's largely a Punjabi background, she was born in Gauhati. And so it is coming home. And she's here also with her mother and her sister, her mother who was living in Gauhati for some time, and her sister who was also coming from this region. So they're also having a kind of family reunion for Gauhati. And I'm also happy to be part of it because I have felt a certain connection to this region and also to Devi Shakti. The other Kamakshi, as you may know, is Kanchipuram, where you have Kanchi Kamakshi, and where you have the Shankaracharyas of Kanchi. I was able to visit with the Shankaracharya of Kanchipuram, the Paramacharya, 3 times during his life, and also to draw the inspiration from there. So my message, in summary, is do not be timid, do not be apologetic, don't simply try to defend yourself or think that you have to justify who you are or what you are doing. This Sanatana Dharma, this Hindu Dharma, is relevant to all human beings. It holds the oldest, deepest spiritual, yogic, rishi heritage of all humanity. It also sustains and upholds all these native and indigenous traditions, whether it be Americas, Asia, Polynesia, Africa, the ancient, deeper spiritual heritage that we have had. It also sustains the greatest mystical tradition that all great mystics share, unity consciousness, self-realization. It's also, all these dharmic connections share this to some degree, in different ways, Buddhist, Jain, Sikh, it's all of the same basic heritage. And they hold, I would say, not only a science of consciousness, but an art of consciousness, and a way of self-realization that is the true goal of our species that we need to develop. So it's very important that there is this continued awakening of the Hindu Dharma, the Vedic knowledge systems, Bharat Mata here, to sustain India as a whole and to sustain the planet as a whole. We have a culture that has been suppressed for a long time, a culture that is also a gentle culture, not an aggressive culture, but is now a culture that needs to, and is finding its voice and needs to make its statement to the world, because we need that philosophical depth, psychological depth, cosmic insight, healing power, connection to nature that we have throughout the Hindu tradition, and that has also been very well preserved here in the Northeast. We also have the danger of the missionary influences going on that should not be underestimated. At the same time, it needs to be countered at the level of knowledge as well as at the level of organization, because we must preserve this tradition for the benefit of all. I remember going to a Kasi village more than 15 years ago and talking to the people, and they said I was the first white man they met who was not a Christian and was not a missionary. There was a huge church at the top of the town, on a hill, And I says, oh, are there a lot of Christians here? And then they said, well, not so many, but they have the most money, so they're able to build the biggest building and put it there. And I should also say to you that the type of Christianity they're bringing into India and the Northeast is a much more aggressive Christianity than you find in the West, and even more intolerant, we could say. I know it's also getting funding from the West, but in America, the people are moving away from those type of traditions. Studies have shown more than a quarter of Americans believe in rebirth. The term karma is common. Millions of people practice yoga, and meditation is also well known and studied.